guy, of course, everybody knows, at least in the great Northwest. I'm talking about Edwin Diaz. He basically just burst onto the scene. The thing that was so surprising about Edwin Diaz for me, and I'm sure Ralph has a ton of notes and a ton of things to say about him and talk to him about you in regards to Edwin Diaz, and that is because I, like many others, have been tracking this guy as a starter, which he has been really, 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 really good as a developing starting pitcher. So good, in fact, that they wanted to find a way to get him to Seattle, threw him in the bullpen, and he was just lighting it up. I mean, ridiculous, like 15K per nine rate. Uh, Eventually became the closer, saved 18 of 21 games. Before he got that role, he had 13 holds. ERA was ridiculous, like a two. Wasn't walking anybody. I mean, it was just sick across the board. Let me see what else. He throws two fastballs and a slider. Those are pretty much his three pitches. He's a hard thrower. Still young. He's what, Ralph? He's only like 22.
Yeah.
And for me, the biggest problem is I don't think it's going to be this year because I think that he's embracing the closer role, and I think they want him to be the closer. But the biggest hurdle for him going forward is going to be: do they somehow find a way to transition him back into the rotation, or is this a permanent gig for him? Kind of like what happened, I hate to say it again, but Mariano Rivera, who kind of set the mold and the example and the prototype for this kind of
Hmm.
a transition. Wanted to read you a couple quick numbers real quick. So Seattle finished 2016 number two in save opportunities with 74, but they blew 25 of them. So they are desperately looking for a closer, and that is why they are trying to make Diaz that everyday guy, that everyday stopper. Um, what can you tell me about Diaz? Real quick, let me throw this other thing in real quick. Only five relievers finished with an 18% or higher swinging strike rate, and Diaz was fourth behind Aroldis Chapman, uh, Giles, and Gregerson. So really, you could say he was arguably the number two closer. Uh, I'm going to stop talking for a minute, let Ralph go. I have a couple other things I want to touch on with Diaz, but what's your initial take with this guy? Are you thinking this is repeatable?
Yeah, absolutely. I view Diaz as, probably one of the top four options in terms of closers this year. And I'm hoping, I haven't been in a ton of early drafts. I'm going to be getting into that in the next couple of weeks. But I'm hoping that his ADP isn't totally inflated. He's not going, with what we like to call over on Razzball the $12 salads with, Aroldis Chapman, Jensen, some of those guys. Because the stuff is there. This could be the year that you can buy low on him before he totally explodes. I think he is destined for this role. He just look it was so natural. And I think, him starting in the major leagues over the course of six innings, having to turn over the lineup two or three times, just quite honestly, I think his control still isn't great. It's good enough in these small sample sizes because he can come out there. He's not getting tired. He can really jam in the fastball. It does touch 97, 98 miles per hour. But the best pitch that he has is his slider. His slider is his plus pitch. Gets a ton of swings and misses on that, and that's one of the reasons that you just brought up for the 18.5% swinging strike rate, which is just ridiculous. But yeah, I think he's going to follow in that mold of, I remember Jonathan Papelbon was another one of those guys like Rivera, where they actually tried to convert him in spring training after his breakout season, and they just decided to scrap it, and they kept him as the closer. And obviously, he had a lot of good years in Boston and Philly.
Right. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but you were
No.
touching on the swinging strike rate again. And, just to kind of give you some perspective on that, Max Scherzer led all starters with a 15.3% swinging strike rate, and he was the only one with 15 or greater among all starting pitchers. So just to show you how good of a number that is that Diaz is putting up in his first taste of the bigs is kind of what I was impressed by the most. As I mentioned, we've been tracking this guy as a starter, and Seattle really, it depends on what you think of them. I mentioned they were number two in save ops last year. Let's just see real quick here. The last 3 years they finished number two, number six, and then number two again. My big thing with Diaz, and I hate to say this, we're going to talk about Gary Sanchez in a future episode, and I feel like people think when I say I have him as my number one catcher that I'm overreacting, or maybe it's because I'm a Yankee fan or whatever the case is. When it comes to Edwin Diaz, I truly believe he could be the best reliever in baseball this season. and he's currently being drafted as the eighth reliever, around the 87th pick overall. So, if there's one reliever I'm reaching for, it's him. Just because I want to make sure I get him. Um, because again, I really think this could be the ace of the season.
Yeah, I totally agree. And the thing that I love is, you mentioned, the 15 plus K per nine. His walks per nine were only 2.6. So even though, like I said, I think at times he's just jamming it in there. The stuff was so crisp, so clean, and it really explodes out of his hand too. He does a good job of hiding the ball. It creeps up on him. He can be dominant, and I think he's a guy that can be a 2 inning kind of reliever, the way you saw Miller or Chapman used during the playoffs. I think he's a guy that can consistently go to, get you anywhere from 3 to 4, 5, 6 outs.
Yeah, if you're a guy that's been blown away and intrigued and just waiting on a guy like Dellin Betances, this is the Betances you've been waiting for with Edwin Diaz.